says that a person can't change? Stay tuned to meet a man who's changed and helps others to do so as well. My name is Yvonne Lewis, and you're watching Urban Report. Hello, and welcome to Urban Report. My guest today is William Gailliard, author of Simply Thinking Big Every Day in Every Way, and motivational speaker. Welcome to Urban Report, Bill.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Thank you very much.
So you have a really interesting story, and I think our viewers just need to know your journey. Before we get into the book or anything like that, let's talk about Bill Gailliard. Who is Bill Gailliard? Where'd you come from?
Charleston, South Carolina.
Okay, and tell us about your family.
Well, my father was a pastor in the African Methodist Episcopal Church for over 40 years, and I'm the ninth of 10 children.
So you had 9 siblings.
That's right.
10 children. Boy, I bet holidays were fun at your house,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. I was number 9, and they were hoping that I would be the last.
And then there was one after you, right?
And they were glad he came along.
So what kind of a child were you, Bill?
Well, first of all, I want to begin by saying I was a middle child. Even though I was number 9, I was in between number 8 and number 10. So that made me a middle child.
Okay.
And, of course, the number 8th child seemed to have gotten all the good gifts. I mean, my brother, 2 years older than myself, could fix anything. He was well-read, and he was a straight A student. That's right. And then I was caught in between him and the baby.
And with all that implies, all right?
With all that implies, that's right. And, of course, it seemed as though everything that broke around the house had my name attached to it.
So were you the child that kind of didn't feel like he could get it right?
Just couldn't ever get it right. That's right. That was from early on.
Okay.
And
so how did that impact you growing up?
Well, it caused me to really want to get it together, go the extra mile. I had to fight for everything, and I was never right. And I use that quite a bit today when people say, you always want to be right. I said, no, I'm used to being wrong. And so during those early years, it was really rough on me. I just could not ever seem to get it right.
How were your grades?
Well, that was the good part. The Lord did bless me to be able to do well in school. And I only remembered one time when I struggled with algebra, and the brother 2 years older than myself helped me quite a bit when I flunked my first algebra test, and just didn't think that I needed to study because I was pretty good in math. And, of course, when I flunked that test, I said, what happened? And then he took me, sat me down, and taught me algebra up until late that night. And from that point on, we were the best of friends. Now, before then, we were not.
Really?
That's right.
So it took this failure, so to speak, in algebra,
right,
to kind of bring you and your brother together.
Absolutely. I mean, he was always loving me, but because everything was going his way, and there was the sibling rivalry, and I was the underdog all the time, and so I was always fighting for my place. But from that point on, I admired him.
That's awesome.
And that turned things around.
Yes. So as a child then, you had certain challenges to overcome, being the middle child at the end of the line, so to speak.
That's right.
So you had those challenges to overcome. There were some other things that happened to you, though, because I read in the book that you got into a habit of doing what?
Stealing. That's right. I ever since I knew myself, I would steal. Without a blink of an eye, I would steal.
Now, how did it start?
Well, it was just around the house, just one thing after another. Just developed this habit of taking that which was not mine. And there were many stories that I could, there are many stories that I could give, but one that I remember is my sister, who was 18 years older than myself, would always send us money through the mail. And I knew the money was coming, and I would look for the mail to come, and I would always go and take the money out before it got there.
Oh, she would send cash?
Cash. Those were the days when they would send cash through the mail, and I would take the money out. That was very bad, but that was one of the habits. Now, during those days, there was also paid telephone booths, and this is one of the whippings that I can still remember, right? Because I was going to the telephone booth, taking the money out of the telephone booth. And my brother, 2 years older than me, told on me. And that was one of the whippings that I can still remember today.
And that was before you guys got close, right?
Yeah, that was way before. But he was always telling, though. He was always telling on me, and it was all about trying to help me stay out of trouble. Now what I discovered later is that he really loved me. But I didn't see it as love in those days. He was always tattletaling.
Yes. So how long did the stealing phase of your life last?
Oh, it lasted until I was at least 7th grade, because I don't remember having a problem with it after 7th grade.
What stopped you?
Well, there were many things that happened to bring me to the point of making an intelligent decision that it wasn't worth it. And that's what really happened. I came to the point where I realized it just wasn't worth it. And so one of the things that happened is that in 6th grade, my 6th grade teacher had the class that they called the good class. And so I was in the good class.
What was it, the honors class?
The honors class. And so I was in that class, but she knew that I had a habit of getting into fights. And so that was another problem I had as well. That's why on the front of my book I said anyone can change, because I had the habit of getting into fights. Now, I didn't pick the fights, but I really liked a good fight.
You didn't pick it, but you didn't start it, but you finished it.
But I really would, that's where my repetition came from.
Okay.
I didn't back down from a fight. But anyhow, she really tried her best to reach me. And I would help clean the class up. Well, the kids didn't like to clean up, but I liked to clean up. That's one of the things that I did learn early on from my mom, because I was the only one of the boys that woke up early every morning when Mom was up cooking and starting the fire. That's the kind of kid I was. I was around my mom, so to some extent I was a mother's boy. And so I learned to clean up very early. Cleaning up at the school now was no problem, because that was something that I did at home. So that was one of the things that she embraced me with, allowing me to be around her. That was one of the things that she did to embrace me, to see whether she could win me. And as a result, I got very close to her. She got very close to me. But she would never put my name on the honor roll list, because she wanted me to know that she wasn't going to let me represent her class until I made some changes. And so...
So your grades
were already
Your grades
good.
were honor roll level?
Yes, it was.
But she wouldn't put you on the honor roll?
Would not put me on the honor roll.
How did that make you feel?
Very bad. Very bad. I didn't like it. And we never discussed it. It's just that I can still remember the first time when I knew I had made the honor roll, and I was waiting for my name to be called, and it wasn't called. I said, I remember the feeling. Well, I wanted to say something, but I didn't say anything. And I eventually figured out why she was doing it, and I just had to accept it.
Wow.
But it got my attention.
Okay, so this is one of the ways that you stopped stealing.
Oh,
Was this one of the things that...
No, the thing that really got me to stop stealing was the fact that because I got close to her and I would clean up the classrooms after school on this particular day, her pocketbook was sitting on the top of the desk, and I saw it. And my mind said, get that pocketbook, that little voice. Mm-hmm. And it just didn't look like the right thing to do. And so I left the classroom and was walking from 100 to 200 yards away from the school. And she knew I had left. But it was like a spirit that comes over a person to do wrong. That spirit came over me again, and I turned around and I headed back. But she had gone to the teacher's lounge. But she knew she saw me. And so when I came back and she was not there and I got the pocketbook, and interestingly enough, when you do things like that, it's interestingly enough, there was no money in the pocketbook. Mm. It wasn't worth it. So I hid the pocketbook not far from our house. Now, that was bad. The boy on the next street would end up finding the pocketbook and taking it to school, and then they told my dad. And in those days, we sat around the table to eat when Dad came home. And we were at the table, and just in the nick of time, when everyone had served their food, my dad just out of the clear blue said, someone stole Mrs. Baker's pocketbook. And with all the acting ability that I had, I didn't change the expression on my face. I didn't skip a beat. I didn't show any signs that it was me, because that's what he was looking for. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, the fork was in my hand, and it came up at this regular pace, and I just moved just normally. And since I passed that test, he went down to everyone else and said that asked each child whether they had stolen the pocketbook, from the older to the next to the next. And then he skipped across me and went to the youngest brother. And everybody said they didn't do it. Well, the two older boys weren't even at the school. They were in high school. And the younger boy was in a different building. The only person who was in Miss Baker's class was me. So he saved me for last. Mm-hmm. And he asked me, and just like I had been trained for acting, I said, no, sir. So it was done so well until everyone, the kids, by the way, were afraid to death. Mm-hmm. Because they knew that I was going to lose my life today.
Your daddy didn't play.
This was going to be it. Mm-hmm. They were afraid for me. And so, but I passed that test, and he finally said, Willie, are you sure? Did you steal Mrs. Baker's pocketbook? I said, no, sir. Just as calm as could be. Now, at that time, it seems as though I heard the door open in the sense that death was in the house. Something bad was going to happen today. And when my dad got up from the table, and you could hear the chair moving, whoop, 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 like that, he said, I still think you stole the pocketbook. He didn't know, but I had passed the test. And when that episode was over, and it seemed as though death had gone back out the door, because he had entered in. This was going to be, someone was going to die up in here today. Oh, my. I had passed that test, and when I walked out of there, I said, it's not worth it. Mm. With all the stress, with all the unrest, sleepless nights, it just wasn't worth it. Mm-hmm. And so that was one of the great things to help me turn it around. And as a child, say, it's just not worth it. So the consequences of making poor decisions, it's just not worth it.
And so that philosophy carried on with you
Yes.
throughout your life. It's just
absolutely.
not
It's
worth
just not worth it. That's right. And of course, I had stolen one other thing from Mrs. Baker. It was at the end of the school day, and there were 6 coconut cakes that were left over from a king and queen contest. You remember those days, the king and queen contest. And she said, take these to the car. And I took them from the classroom to the car, and that little voice said, she's not going to miss one. If I knew all that was going to come from that one cake, I'm telling you, how could a person get that upset over one cake in my mind? But she got upset over that one cake. She even asked me, did I see anyone? And I just blurted out the name of some bad guy in the neighborhood. And she went to the high school and had him in the classroom the next morning. And the kids in the classroom were afraid for me because this was a bad guy. I just blurted his name out. And when that episode was over, I said again, it's just not worth it. And my daddy had already told me that if I didn't stop stealing around the house, that I would eventually steal abroad. And he says, when you steal abroad, you're going to get caught. And when you get caught, they're going to take you to the reformatory school. And when they take you to the reformatory school, you're going to stay there until you graduate from high school, and I'm not going to visit you, not even once. Because he had told me over and over, you need to stop stealing. And so, again, when that second incident happened with Mrs. Baker, I said again, it's just not worth it. But then the third instance, when I stole in a grocery store, a big grocery store, and I was at the counter with money in my pocket, but I stole a bag of candy corn, and a hand gripped me like that. My goose was cooked. My heart was beating. And all of a sudden, in the middle of the aisle, someone just appeared and walked up and says, he's from a good family. I know the parents. Give him another chance. And the man released my hand and gave me some tough words, told me not to ever come back again. And my heart was broken on that day. I said my heart was broken. My daddy's words had come true. The stealing that I had been doing at home had gone abroad. I did get caught, but I got grace. And that's why I talk about grace so much now. Believing in God,
yes.
Believing in grace.
Yes, yes, because grace has been activated in your life, and you've been the recipient
That's right.
of grace.
That's right. And I came out of that store that day in tears, with a broken heart. And I began to say, please change me. Oh, yeah. I began, the God that I had heard about, I began to talk to him like he was there. I said, please change me. I mean, broken. I wanted to change.
So how did God manifest himself to you? How did you begin that change? I know after this particular incident, was there anything else that happened wherein you said, wow, I really have changed. God really has changed me?
Well, what happened is that when my heart was broken, shedding tears, it felt like a load. I don't know whether you've ever lifted barbells. And when you pick up the weight that's too heavy and you need to let it down, well, that's how it felt. A load just seemed to have fallen off of me. And I felt better. And I just knew something had happened. I didn't understand what happened, but something had happened that day. And I knew that something had happened. That's all I could say.
Right.
Something had happened. As a matter of fact, what happened when I was in 4th grade was the fact that I had been such a terrible fellow in 3rd grade, so that when I got to 4th grade, the teacher was braced and waiting for me.
Because your reputation preceded you.
Yeah, my reputation preceded me, and she was looking for that kid that was raising so much sand in 3rd grade until she was ready for me on the first day. But that guy never showed up on the first day. Nor the first week, nor the first month, nor the first semester. And on the last day of the school year, she said, "Son, what happened?" She wanted to know. Because she said, I was waiting for you from the first day. And guess what I said? I said, I was born again. That's the only term I knew at that time to explain to her what had happened to me.
And how old were you?
At that time, I was just 9.
Okay.
But my dad had really worked on my rearing. Now, that's what we call putting the Board of Education on the seat of my intelligence. You understand? And when you put it in the proper place, it goes right to the brain. It retrains the brain, if you understand what I'm talking about.
I hear you.
And so I was born again. And Dad says Gailliards don't act this way. And so I had a great 4th grade year. Now things, just like the sine curves go up. And so 5th and 6th went down. And then 7th, it got a little better. By the time I got to 8th, I was making good decisions. And my mom was in the background. She was saying that, boy, if you don't change, your daddy's not going to let you drive that car like the other brothers. Now, in these days, our family was one of the few families that had a car in our neighborhood. Folks were riding the city bus at that time. And so she kept telling me, you're not going to get that driver's license like Junior and like James. And that also helped me to make good choices, because I knew that I wanted the driver's license right on time like everybody else. And so it started helping me to think right.
So when you became an adult, or just in your post-adolescent years, just before adulthood, was there some pivotal event that really changed your life? Well,
I'm thinking that what really brought about the change is when that hand grabbed me. And when my daddy's words had come to fruition or fulfillment. And I could hear his words saying, this is going to happen, and this is how I'm going to respond to it. That helped me tremendously. Now, by the time I became a teenager, I was an excellent church worker. Now, I was not, I was in the African Methodist Episcopal Church at this time. He was the pastor. And I was a people's person. I was a choir leader. I was even a soul winner to some extent, because I would get the young kids to come to the church. He liked that. And as a result, he ended up giving me a car at age 16. So these things had a lot to do with me continuing to make right choices, because I saw that, number one, I got my permit on time at 14. I got my driver's license on time at 16. He allowed me to even take the school bus driving test, and I drove school bus from 16, from 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. This taught me that he was trusting me to make right choices, because you don't let a... Go ahead.
Right. No, you finish your sentence. Huh?
You don't let a teenager drive school bus without showing him that he can make responsible decisions, because every day you got under that steering wheel, kids were doing all kinds of things on the school buses, and you had to make right choices every day. And so
you're a teenager.
I'm a teenager.
Wow.
And let me tell you,
that's a lot of responsibility.
That was big responsibility.
So how did you come to write a book? Let's talk about that, because our time, I can't believe our time is running out.
I can't believe it.
How did you come to write this book about thinking big?
I had been going into the schools, taking the gospel into the school. And this is my little manual that I had been using.
Yes.
I had it all written out, what I've been doing for several years, and people were following me. And a little voice said, if you don't write a book, someone's going to take your stuff, and they are going to write a book. And they are going to be laughing all the way to the bank, and you're going to be crying. That's how the book came about, because I had this, been using it, and was not afraid to put my stuff that were unique out there. Just wasn't afraid.
And what kinds of ideas are you setting forth in the book that are unique to you?
Play your ace. So when I go into a classroom or to a school and I talk to kids about improving their grades, I ask them, how many of you are straight A students? And very few hands go up. How many of you are AB honor roll? And a few more. And but for the most part, the kids are not on the honor roll. So I said, how many of you would like to make better grades? And all the hands go up. I said, very, very good. Well, the first thing you need to do is learn to play your ace. I said, now if you learn to play your ace, the grades will go up. No two ways about it. Now what's the A? The A is learn to pay attention. I said, you've got to learn to pay attention. The C is for concentration. You've got to learn to concentrate. One word means the same thing as concentrate. Learn to focus. Regardless of what else is going on around you, you've got to learn that. And then finally, you've got to learn to echo. That means to repeat the same thing over and over and over and over and over again until you get it.
Okay.
It doesn't matter how many times it takes for you to get it. You just do it until you get it. It may take one person 3, it may take another person's 9, it may take another person 27. But even if it takes you 30, you do it until you get it.
I love
That's what you call play your ace.
Play your ace.
That's right.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, you have a lot of these ideas in your book, your motivational speaking. How can people contact you? Let's put your email address up so that people can email you. That's
Levi35234 at yahoo.com.
And you're available to go to schools.
Absolutely.
Because you have been there throughout your life.
That's
you
right.
have been changed.
That's right. I've been changed.
And you want to share with others how to do it.
That they can do it. And it's all about thinking big. One of the things that I do is I get them to raise their right hand and pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to a new start. And from the bottom of my heart, I am going to think big every day in every way.
Can't think of a better way to close than that. Thank you so much. May God bless you. And thank you for being with us. And thank you. You know, 2 Corinthians 5:17 says, therefore, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are made new. Thank you so much, Brother Bill. God bless you. Tune in next time. It wouldn't be the same without you.